In the peaceful town of Laces, nestled in the heart of the Dominican Republic, a community was torn apart by an act of unimaginable violence. A bright, promising young woman named Laura Terres had her life brutally stolen, leaving behind a trail of mystery, betrayal, and heartbreak. She was a beloved daughter, a dedicated student, and a shining light to all who knew her. But one fateful evening, Laura vanished without a trace, only to be found the next day, her body hidden in the roadside bushes, savagely mutilated. What could drive someone to commit such a heinous act? As investigators unraveled the mystery, they uncovered a web of lies and dark secrets that no one could have ever imagined. In this episode of True Crime Series, we dive deep into the tragic murder of Laura Terres, a case that rocked her community to its core. Who was the killer, and what twisted motives led to this senseless murder? Stay tuned as we reveal the shocking truth behind the crime that shook Laces. Hit the subscribe button, turn on notifications, and join us as we uncover the dark secrets behind this chilling case. This is True Crime Series. On Friday, November 6, 2009, the day began like any other in the small town of Laces, nestled in the heart of the Dominican Republic. The sun rose over the town, casting its warm, golden rays over the quiet streets, and the residents went about their daily routines, unaware that their peaceful community was about to be shattered by a gruesome discovery. Two men, residents of Laces, were walking along a familiar roadside when something unusual caught their attention. Amidst the roadside bushes, they noticed a large sheet, stained with cement and paint, partially hidden from view. Curious, they approached the sheet, and what they found would haunt them forever. As they carefully unfolded the sheet, their eyes widened in horror. Inside was the body of a young woman, her face completely disfigured. A cord and a piece of cloth were found hanging from her neck, a chilling sign of the violence she had endured. The men immediately alerted the authorities, and soon, the area was swarming with police officers and investigators, all trying to piece together what had happened. As they combed through the scene, they found a set of documents belonging to a woman named Maria Teresa Molina. She had been recently robbed, and although these documents did not immediately help identify the victim, they would later prove crucial in uncovering the shocking motive behind the crime and identifying the person responsible. The news of the discovery spread like wildfire through Laces, sending shockwaves through the tight-knit community. Who could have committed such a brutal act, and why? The residents were desperate for answers, and as the investigation unfolded, a dark and twisted tale began to emerge, one that would reveal lies, betrayal, and a web of deceit that led to the murder of an innocent young woman. Laura Terres was a vibrant young woman living in the Dominican Republic. She was the daughter of Vilo Tabars and Selena, and she spent most of her time studying architecture at the prestigious Universidad Católica Nordestana. In her free time, Laura enjoyed hanging out with friends, volunteering at a senior home, and working as a private English tutor. Those who knew her described her as cheerful and full of life, a person who could brighten any room she entered. When a friend was feeling down, she would often tell them to look at the sky, because there would always be a star shining for them. Laura stood out as one of the most mature among her friends, always looking out for everyone and offering support and encouragement. In 2009, at the age of 19, Laura primarily lived with her mother, but she also spent a lot of time with her father and stepmother, who lived just a few blocks away in the same town. She was passionate about her studies and had many dreams for the future. Her family and friends admired her dedication, her positive spirit, and her unwavering determination to succeed. But tragically, all of Laura's dreams were cut short in the most horrifying way possible. Thursday, November 5, 2009, began like any other day for Laura. She went to her university as usual, attended her classes, and then returned to her mother's house. In the early evening, around 6:30 p.m., she left home to visit her father and stepmother. However, she soon realized that she had forgotten to bring a change of clothes, so she turned back to retrieve them. That moment, as she left her mother's house for the second time, would be the last time anyone saw her alive. As the hours passed and Laura did not return home, her family began to worry. They tried to reach her by phone, but there was no answer. Concern quickly turned to panic, and by the time the night fell, her family was frantic. They went to the local police station to file a missing person report and began searching for her themselves. Little did they know, their worst fears were about to be realized. The following day, Friday, November 6th, two men from the Laces community were walking along the road when they noticed something unusual near the bushes. Upon closer inspection, they were horrified to discover a body wrapped in a dirty tarp, stained with cement and paint. The body was dressed only in pants and a bra, and the face was so severely disfigured that it was almost unrecognizable. A cord and a piece of cloth were found hanging from the neck, and there were deep cuts on the neck and other parts of the body. The police were quickly alerted, and when they arrived at the scene, they were equally shocked by the brutality of the crime. It was clear that the victim had suffered greatly at the hands of her attacker. Nearby, the officers found a set of documents belonging to Maria Teresa Molina, a woman who had been robbed just a few days earlier, on November 1st. They also found a small notebook and a cell phone at the scene, but when they turned on the phone, they discovered that it did not belong to Maria Teresa. The situation was puzzling. The officers believed Maria Teresa was still alive since she had reported the robbery just days earlier. The discovery of the documents raised more questions than answers. Who was the victim? And why were Maria Teresa's documents found with the body? Despite the uncertainty, the officers suspected that the body might belong to Laura, who had been missing since the previous afternoon. The body was taken to the forensic clinic for examination, and the autopsy revealed a horrific truth: the young woman had no intact bones in her skull due to the severe blows she had suffered. The cuts on her neck and other parts of her body had been inflicted with a small pair of scissors, and there were bruises on her torso and cuts on her chest. The most chilling revelation was that all of these injuries had been inflicted while she was still alive. The cause of death was determined to be strangulation, carried out with the cord from her shoes and the piece of cloth found at the scene. The doctors confirmed what the police had feared: the body did indeed belong to Laura Tarras. When her family received the news, they were devastated. The entire town shared their grief, as no one could understand how a young woman with no known enemies could be found dead under such violent circumstances. As news of Laura's murder spread, the local authorities launched a full-scale investigation to uncover the truth behind the heinous crime. Initially, there was speculation that the murder might be linked to drug trafficking, given the region's issues with illegal substances. However, testimony soon pointed to a completely different scenario, one that would expose the dark underbelly of the seemingly peaceful town of Laces. The first piece of evidence that investigators focused on was the cell phone found at the scene. The phone belonged to Laura, and when officers reviewed its contents, they found no indication that she had any problems with acquaintances or was involved in illegal activities. However, they did discover that on the day of her death, Laura had communicated with two men. One of these men was named Jono Santana Villanueva, who had made at least 15 calls to Laura's phone on the night of the crime. Both men were quickly found and arrested, but the investigation did not end there. The police and the public prosecutor's office detained about 20 young people, mostly friends and fellow students of Laura, for questioning. During these interrogations, they asked the young people who they believed could be behind the murder, and everyone pointed to the same person: Maria Magdalena Marizan Flores. Maria Magdalena Marizan Flores was a well-known figure in the Laces community. She lived close to where Laura's body was found and was known as a businesswoman with substantial economic power. She had amassed a considerable fortune while living in the United States and was considered one of the wealthiest individuals in the area. However, beneath her seemingly successful exterior, Maria Magdalena harbored deep-seated anger and resentment, particularly towards Laura. Witnesses testified that Maria Magdalena despised Laura because she did not want her to be friends with her daughter, Maciel, whom she considered a bad influence. According to Maria Magdalena, in recent years, her daughter's personality had changed. Maciel began consuming large amounts of alcohol, frequently missed classes, and exhibited behavior that Maria Magdalena found troubling. She believed that Laura was the one encouraging this behavior, despite everyone else describing Laura as mature and studious. Moreover, Maria Magdalena blamed Laura for introducing her daughter to a young man nicknamed El Rocky, who became Maciel's boyfriend. Maria Magdalena did not approve of this relationship, as she considered El Rocky to be a delinquent who was not good enough for her daughter. However, Laura had repeatedly advised Maciel to follow her heart and supported her decision to continue seeing El Rocky. As time went on, the situation between Maria Magdalena and Laura worsened. Whenever Maciel came home late, Maria Magdalena assumed she had been with Laura. The same happened if Maciel skipped university or was found drunk. Maria Magdalena believed that Laura had given her daughter money for alcohol or had arranged for her to meet with the boy. The tension between them escalated to the point where Maria Magdalena considered Laura her sworn enemy. Her resentment reached a boiling point, and she became determined to eliminate the girl she believed was destroying her daughter's life. She began planning to kill Laura, but not before trying to disgrace her in the community. Maria Magdalena started spreading rumors that Laura was promiscuous, often seen in the company of delinquent boys, and someone who had a negative influence on Maciel. But despite her efforts, Laura's reputation remained untarnished. She continued to be admired by her peers and respected in her community. This infuriated Maria Magdalena even more, and she decided that the only way to rid herself of Laura was to take her life. The night of Thursday, November 5th, 2009, started like any other for Laura. After attending classes and spending time with her family, she set out to visit her father and stepmother. However, as she walked alone through the streets of Laces, she was unaware that Maria Magdalena was watching her every move. Maria Magdalena had meticulously planned the murder, and she was waiting for the perfect moment to strike. When she saw Laura walking alone, she knew her opportunity had arrived. Maria Magdalena, armed with a pair of scissors and a rope, quietly followed Laura, waiting for the right moment to make her move. When Laura reached a secluded area, Maria Magdalena confronted her, accusing her of corrupting her daughter and ruining her life. Laura, taken aback by the sudden outburst, tried to reason with Maria Magdalena, but her words fell on deaf ears. The anger and resentment that Maria Magdalena had been harboring for so long exploded in a fit of rage, and she attacked Laura. Laura fought back, but Maria Magdalena was determined to see her plan through. Using the rope, she strangled Laura until she was unconscious. Then, in a final act of brutality, she used the scissors to inflict deep cuts on Laura's body, ensuring that she would not survive. As Laura took her last breath, Maria Magdalena stood over her, watching the life drain from her eyes. Once Laura was dead, Maria Magdalena knew she had to get rid of the body. She wrapped it in a tarp, stained with cement and paint to disguise it, and dragged it to the roadside bushes, hoping that it would remain hidden long enough for her to escape suspicion. But despite her best efforts, her crime would not go unnoticed. The police investigation quickly closed in on Maria Magdalena. Her hatred for Laura was well known in the community, and the evidence against her was overwhelming. Witnesses testified that they had seen Maria Magdalena following Laura on the night of the murder, and her fingerprints were found on the tarp used to cover Laura's body. On the morning of November 6, 2009, Maria Magdalena was arrested and taken into custody. During her interrogation, she initially denied any involvement in the murder, but as the evidence mounted against her, she finally confessed to the crime. She told investigators that she had been consumed by anger and hatred for Laura, and that she believed killing her was the only way to save her daughter from a life of ruin. Maria Magdalena was charged with first-degree murder and faced the possibility of life in prison. During her trial, the prosecution presented a compelling case, detailing how Maria Magdalena had meticulously planned and carried out the murder of Laura Terres. The jury deliberated for only a few hours before returning a guilty verdict. On March 12, 2010, Maria Magdalena was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. The judge, in his sentencing remarks, condemned her actions as cold-blooded and premeditated and said that she had shown no remorse for the pain and suffering she had caused. Laura's family, while devastated by her loss, found some solace in the fact that justice had been served. The town of Laces was left to mourn the loss of a bright, promising young woman whose life was cut short by senseless violence. And while the memory of Laura Terres lives on in the hearts of those who knew and loved her, the story of her tragic death serves as a stark reminder of the devastating consequences of hatred and revenge. In the years following Maria Magdalena's conviction, the town of Laces slowly began to heal from the trauma of Laura's murder. Her family established a scholarship in her name, dedicated to helping young women pursue their dreams, just as Laura had been doing before her life was so tragically taken. Though the pain of her loss will never fully fade, her legacy lives on through the countless lives she touched and continues to inspire.